All right, so is everyone seeing my slides, my PowerPoint? Okay, want to thank everyone again for tuning in to Environmental Fridays. It is personal. We invite you to take a look at our website. You could do that either through the link here or using the QR code. So this is a list, a gallery, a photo gallery of our speakers this season. So we have today, Susan will be featured along with Princella, and we then have about six more speakers lined up. So we look forward to that. We want to also acknowledge our partners in this Environmental Fridays, the American Chemical Society Committee on Minority Affairs, the Benton Spirit, a long-standing partner with me, and GC Scored, Every Piece Matters, that deals with social emotional wellness. Um, we like everyone to check out our Facebook group. You could check it out, join to see updates on things dealing with the environment. And all you got to do really is go to Google and search for Environmental Fridays Facebook group, and that will take you directly. They'll get you links that will take you directly to the Facebook group. Same thing with our YouTube list, Environmental Fridays, Google Environmental Fridays YouTube playlist, and you will get to a number of our playlists for each season. We are again in season 8, and the link as well as the QR code here will take you to our season 8 episodes. We want to also highlight some of the environmental days in this month. In fact, for most of the month, we have several observances: Earth Month, National Garden Month, Poetic Earth Month, yes, Poetic Earth Month. And then April 22nd is Earth Day. So if you're interested and want to know more about any of these observances this month, just again go to Google and you'll get a lot of information there. Um, in celebration or in observance and in connection with our talk today, I want to play this song. Anybody knows who is the original singer of this song? Mercy, Mercy Me? Somebody has to know. For real,
I
nobody?
do.
Huh?
I do, but I'll wait. I think I know.
Okay, go ahead. Tell us.
Marvin Gaye?
Marvin Gaye.
Oh gosh, I didn't want to be wrong.
I didn't know that's what that song was about.
All wasted on the oceans and on seas, fish full of mercury. Oh, oh, mercy, mercy. Oh, say what made you come. Radiation underground in the sky. Animals and birds who live nearby night. Mercy, mercy. All things and what they do.
Are you there, Desmond? Princess, do you think we lost Desmond? Let's see if I can text him.
Okay. Did you guys hear the song?
We could hear it a little bit.
Oh,
Not great, but I recognized it, so I had no idea that that's what the
yeah.
song was about.
Okay,
Really
I'm
no.
sorry that you didn't get to hear it. Well, so couple of things, of course. Let me just go back to the words fish full of mercury. Hopefully you will see the connection and now, in fact, Susan, is that a problem still? Mercury in
Yes.
fish? It is still a
Yep.
problem. So we've
Yep.
added problems to on top
Yes,
of it.
indeed. Yep.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, we could spend a lot of time just sort of like talking about, thinking about these words and where we are compared to back, I think it was in the 70s or so that this song came out. Um, so today I would like to introduce Ebony and Ivory. Princella
Oh God.
and Susan.
Talking about us. That's hilarious.
Yes, Ebony and Ivory, another song there too. So
From the
they've
70s.
both, yes, they've both been friends for a while. Princess for like over 20 years. Susan, I think more on the order of like 3 to 5 years or so. But anyway, I will introduce Ivory first. So Dr. Susan Buchanan is a clinical associate professor of environmental and occupational health sciences at the University of Illinois Chicago School of Public Health. She is director of the Great Lakes Center for Reproductive and Children's Environmental Health. This center is funded by the EPA and CDC, Agency for Toxic Substances. I hope you are still getting funding.
For now.
Okay. And is designated as the Pediatric Environmental Specialty Unit for the EPA Region 5. She's board certified in occupational and environmental medicine and sees patients in the University Health Services at the University of Illinois Health Clinic. So that's Ivory. Ebony is Princella Tobias. She's founder and chief executive officer of the award-winning Benton Spirit, which is celebrating, I believe, in its 23rd year. It was recognized back in 2003 by Governor Granholm's task force as a key communications stakeholder to proactively assist in the total development of Benton Harbor. She's also founding director of Benton Harbor Team Solution, co-founder of A for Asthma. In fact, Dr. Buchanan is also a co-founder of A for Asthma. She was recently, that was last week, Thursday, awarded the first Andrews University Presidential Recognition of Altruistic Service. Prior work experience was with two United States Senators, Alan Dixon and Carol Mosley Braun, as well as Mayor Harold Washington. She was appointed chair of the Benton Harbor Water Response Committee by Mayor Marcus Muhammad and Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer back in 2021 when Benton Harbor was going through its water-led crisis. So these are our two speakers today. My understanding is that Susan will go first, and I will stop sharing, and you could go ahead and upload your slides.
Application window is open. Okay,
All right.
that's great. Thank you very much, Dr. Murray, for inviting me. It's really great to be here. I'm over in Chicago, working from home today. So what we're going to talk about today is different from the A for Asthma partnership that Princella and I have developed over several years, and talk about something we've been working on for the last 18 months, maybe last year, given the delays in funding. But this is a study that looks at the chemical PFAS contamination in Lake Michigan and its exposure to people who eat fish. So mercury in fish was already mentioned. Mercury in fish is primarily nowadays from coal burning power plants. So as long as we continue to burn coal, the emissions will contain mercury that go up in the air on a global scale and travel around the planet, and then comes down and rain, and then builds up in the fish in the waterways. So there is still mercury in fish. There's a lot of different contaminants in fish, and this particular study was about PFAS. So I'm going to talk about PFAS for a little bit. This is a depiction of this humongous class of chemicals. These are human-made chemicals called polyfluorinated chemicals. They've got all kinds of configurations and initials that describe their long chemical names. This is kind of a family tree, and overall, the term that's being used is PFAS, polyfluorinated alkyl substances. So PFAS is the word used for the overall group of thousands, literally thousands of different formulations of these chemicals. And this is just one slide that shows that we're basically, all of us are exposed to it. And I'll give you a slide in a minute showing you where these chemicals are coming from to be exposed to us. Another term that is used is forever chemicals. That's kind of the popular term that's now being used to describe PFAS because they last so long in the environment. So the Johns Hopkins medical website on the Johns Hopkins University Bloomberg School of Health website has a quote that says, "These compounds are now so ubiquitous that an estimated 98% of the US population has detectable concentrations in their blood." So basically, all of us have some PFAS in our blood, and this graph just shows the varying levels. And I'm also a specialist in occupational health. And you can see from that orange bar, this is very typical with environmental exposures, is it's often workers that are getting the highest amount of exposure because they're the ones manufacturing the chemicals, or they're in a workplace that is using high levels of a chemical before it gets emitted to our environment where we get exposed. So this orange bar shows these really high levels in workers. And then the other bars are different contaminated communities where the PFAS happens to be really high in the drinking water, or it's high in the foods that are farmed in that community. The light blue shows two different studies of the general population, so just you and me. And that one on the bottom is the most recent and showing the levels in all of us are a little lower than if we lived in a specifically contaminated area. But the point being, we all have PFAS in us. These two classes of the thousands, PFOS and PFOA, are also commonly found in breast milk and cord blood. That means baby's blood. So it goes, if it's in the mother, it's going into her breast milk, it's crossing the placenta, getting to the fetus, and you can measure it in the baby's umbilical cord, meaning the baby's bloodstream, as soon as it's born. And this is only those two because those two are the ones that have been checked. I mean, our labs are still catching up with how to even test for these thousands of chemicals. It's very expensive to do the blood testing, so it's not like a lot of this testing is occurring. So we don't know. We don't know which ones are showing up in breast milk and cord blood. In addition to this PFOS and PFOA, those are the two that have been checked. So how are we exposed? Let's just go through these. Drinking contaminated municipal water or private well water is a common source. So this contaminant is getting into the waterways. That can be surface water, so lakes, or it can be groundwater and where we get our drinking water. Eating fish from water contaminated with PFAS, and that's what the study that was funded is about. Accidentally swallowing soil or dust. Now that's not an issue for adults, but for children, ingesting dust and dirt is a huge source of contamination, of getting chemicals like lead from lead paint. And these chemicals, if they're in a lot of household products, they get in the house dust and kids put toys in their mouths, they crawl around, they put their hands in their mouths, and it doesn't take much contamination in dust for them to get poisoned with things like lead and PFAS. Eating food grown or raised near places, eating food packaged in material that contains PFAS. Microwave popcorn is a big one. Using some consumer products such as stain-resistant carpeting and water-repellent clothing. I've got another slide that lists some of these products. So under here where this major source is communities in all 50 states have PFAS contaminated drinking water affecting greater than 19 million people. And that's mostly from the use in the past of firefighting foam. So if you're near an airport or a military site, they do a lot of training on how to put out fires. So they're constantly building fires, putting them out, getting firefighters out there, airport firefighters, and what they use to put out the fires is this white foam. PFAS is great at fire suppression. So all that foam runs off from the airports, runs off from the military sites, and then filters into the groundwater, so down into the water. And this is a slide that I just put some boxes around the most common exposures we might have. But you can see this is a big chart, and I only took a screenshot of part of it. And it's so there's many, many sources of exposure. I'm telling you, this is a mess with these chemicals. So these ones I outlined, look at the top, starting with cosmetics. So dental floss, toothpaste, throat lozenges, chewing gum, sunscreen, and going down to electronics, cell phones, computers. And then down at the bottom, food processing, coating, packaging, I already mentioned, microwave popcorn, household cleaning products and household products like these nonstick coatings on pans, carpeting, leather, glass, upholstery, any waterproof clothing you have. So many, many sources of exposure for all of us, which is why 98% of us, basically all of us, have some in us already. One problem is it lasts in the body for a long time. There are over 12,000 types of formulations of PFAS. So we don't know about all of them, but this is an example of how long they remain in the body. And so there's a huge variety. So you see the PFBA only lasts, 4 or 5 days in the body. And then you go up to PFHXS, which is up to 35 years in the body. So a huge range of how long these things last in the body, in our bodies. And before I get to our study, I just wanted to mention one last thing about the health, what we know about the health effects. So we got all these contaminants in our body. What are they causing? The National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine, which to me is kind of the gold standard of science conclusions and science findings that I use and that I trust, wrote a huge report in 2022. So they gather a bunch of scientists who are all working for free. So there isn't a conflict of interest, and I get them all together to review the science on an issue. And this issue was PFAS, and said, all right, what's it doing to humans? And I just outlined one of the tasks of this big group of scientists was to review the human health literature on effects, human health effects. So what did they find? And this was from their final report in 2022. So relatively new, that we have a national body saying, okay, this is what we have determined according to the science right now that PFAS causes in humans. So this red box is what they determined was sufficient evidence. So that means they're pretty confident that exposure to these substances cause those 4 things on the right: decreased antibody response to immunizations. So you get your measles shot, and do those antibodies last for life? And do you make enough antibodies to actually prevent measles? So is it affecting how well our immunizations work? Dyslipidemia is just high cholesterol. So PFAS contributing to high cholesterol, decreased growth in infancy, and increased risk of kidney cancer. So kidney cancer has been shown to be associated with these chemicals. Now, the yellow box below that is the science that shows moderate evidence. So that's still very concerning. But this group of scientists said there's not enough evidence to say we're really confident, high confidence. You see the phrase they use there. There's moderate confidence in those 6 items in that bullet. So breast cancer, liver function, pregnancy-induced hypertension, testicular cancer, thyroid disease, and ulcerative colitis. These are all diseases that we are very familiar with and are all increasing in frequency. And it looks like PFAS, this group of scientists has moderate confidence that PFAS is contributing to them. So this was a big deal for me to have this body come out several years ago and say, okay, this is what we know so far. Because of course, industry is constantly fighting the science and saying that and publishing studies that they fund that says this stuff is not harmful. And I said, like I said, these scientists are not paid. This is a government entity giving us the summary of the evidence. And then this is a map showing all the PFAS contaminated sites in the US. So this is why 98% of us have PFAS in us, because this map shows how much there is. Lots and lots of sites. And now I'll describe the study that I conducted with Princess, and we are just now finalizing our findings. So I'll give you some early findings. So this was funded by Illinois Indiana Sea Grant, which is a fund by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And they had already conducted a study that found PFAS in all the fish that they caught in Lake Michigan. So Lake Michigan fish have PFAS in them. And here are some maps of the Benton Harbor area showing PFAS contamination. And what's most prominent is the little green boxes showing PFAS in the surface water. And the triangle is the site where the PFAS is known to have come from. And we don't know when. Again, this stuff lasts in the environment a really long time. So these are some maps that you can actually pull up publicly available databases. And then here's some levels of PFAS in the different fish in Lake Michigan. You see slimy sculpin has very high PFAS levels. I had never even heard of slimy sculpin until I started talking to these people who fish in Lake Michigan. And you can see round goby there has the lowest, but it still has some PFAS in it. So this was our funded study, Fish Consumption and Knowledge of PFAS Among Communities of Color in the Lake Michigan region. This is specifically what this Illinois Sea Grant entity, this organization, they wanted to know. This is not a study of us measuring PFAS in people. We didn't measure PFAS in fish. They just want to know, for starters, where are people fishing and what are they eating? And do they know anything about PFAS? So we worked with these two communities, Benton Harbor and south side of Chicago. And this is our team at UIC. And we have a colleague down in Champaign-Urbana and Princess in Benton Harbor, and Wayne Hankins runs a fishing group on the south side of Chicago. And our objectives below there were very clear in that we're just characterizing fish consumption behavior. Where do you fish? What type of fish do you eat? Or do you eat the fish you catch? Who else eats the fish you catch? And then to look at people's familiarity with contaminants. Do you know about PFAS? Where do you go for your health information? Who do you trust for health information? Because then these Illinois Sea Grant folks, after they get a report, they want to create messaging. They want to reach out to the anglers and with the information on which fish to eat and which fish to not eat. So this is just the first step in trying to influence people's exposure levels. And this is the funding agency again, through the federal government. And we had these two community partners, including Princess, who I've worked with on air quality and asthma. And then Wayne Hankins hosts fishing tournaments down on the lakefront in Chicago, South Side. And they're the Nightmare Fishing Group. They're awesome. So the first thing we did in the studies, given that I don't know anything about fishing in Lake Michigan, and we wanted to write a survey, how am I going to know what to even ask people? So a good researcher, before they even start writing their survey, will go talk to the people they're going to survey and find out what their fish, get some background information. So that's what we did. And we did these fun data walks where Princess recruited a bunch of people who fish in Benton Harbor, and we got together and had dinner, and we had different stations where some of our graduate students staffed the stations where the anglers would go around to the tables and just talk about, they'd look at these posters of what species do you fish for, and they had little stickers, and where do you fish, and what time of year do you fish, and this helped us write our survey. And so these boxes show some of the different results that we got from these, what's called these data walks. And you see on the top boxes, what are your trusted sources of fishing and health information? So doctor, radio, workplace wellness program. There's a guy, Dale Bowman, who writes a column in the Chicago Sun-Times. I had no idea. It's a fishing column that a lot of the people who fish in Chicago read his column. Are you aware of contaminants? So there was kind of knowledge was kind of all over the place about what people know about contaminants in fish. We found out, and these posters show kind of us finding out where people fish around Benton Harbor and the species that they fish for. And what we found was every single species we put on the poster, people are catching. There aren't really any species that people don't catch. So then that gave us some information to write our survey. So then we knew what to ask. And so we recruited with this postcard here. Princess helped us recruit. Do you fish in Benton Harbor? Come and fill out this survey. And on the right is just a sample of our survey of just asking how often do you go fishing, what seasons, blah, blah, blah. Just a one-page sample on our survey. And we ended up with 76 surveys that we used for our findings. And these are just some pictures of us in the field with the grad students on the south side at a fishing tournament and a training we had in Benton Harbor with folks who were going to collect surveys, and then our team at our data walk in Benton Harbor. And now Princess is going to take a few minutes to talk about the data collection activities in Benton Harbor, and then come back and I will give some early findings from our study. You want to take it away, Princess?
Sure will. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Susan Buchanan. You know, I want to thank the funders of this program, UIC, I think it was Sea Grant and UIC, Benton Harbor Team Solutions, because when we got involved in this, it was something that many of us, like Susan at one point, didn't know a lot about. Of course, I knew how to fish from my grandmother. And it made me think about, I want to just start, if I could, with what Dr. Murray started this program, talking about Mercy, Mercy Me, that song by Marvin Gaye. You know, how things are not what they used to be. You know, I'm thinking about my grandmother with her cane pose out the back window, Miss Emma Robinson, also from Buchanan. My auntie on the south side of Chicago would drive to Michigan just to fish. And today, because of this program and what we have learned, things are not what they used to be. And I think it's so important that we are aware of where we are today. And this program helped us. So even with the data walk, we had people who showed up and they learned so much. We had young people who showed up that were involved in this, and I'll get to that as well. But what Dr. Buchanan did by bringing us all together in Benton Harbor, because I think it was very important and strategic that they use the south side of Chicago. You know, when we think of Lake Michigan, it comes right here to Benton Harbor, and we're sitting here on Lake Michigan. And so by able to get people in Benton Harbor to be involved, that was really, really critical. And some of the people may be on the call, some could not. So Dr. Murray, we definitely need to record this episode, but because they want to hear more, and we do have another step. But Susan came into Benton Harbor. First of all, we did training for the participants. And I think that was critical because it not only heightened their education about fishing and PFAS, but it made them more in a controlling or knowledgeable state when they went out. And so the training we had, Susan, you guys even trained us how to meet people and greet people and things of that nature, the social skills that were needed. That was a 10-hour training that we had to go through, 10 whole hours. We broke it down in segments, and the people here in Benton Harbor, and I'm sure in Chicago as well, they were actually certified after that training. So that was equally as important as everything else that we're talking about. But then Susan actually came to Benton Harbor and trained us one-on-one. That you guys supplied us with tablets, you supplied us with name tags, you supplied us with the little orange jackets and everything else that was needed. And we even did a role-playing session to make sure that we knew what we thought we didn't know. And then what we did know, we knew how to actually interact with other people out in the community. And so when it came to being out in the community, it was really something. You know, here we are sitting on Lake Michigan. We are the home of beautiful historic Gene Clark Park. We went to that location, and then we went to locations that we knew that people in Benton Harbor would fish on at. And that is right on Riverview Drive, the lakes there. We met a lot of people in that lake park. There were some areas, and one was kind of scary since we are talking about PFAS. Ox Creek is known in our area, and how there were signs that people could not fish there. So already, if that didn't tell us, something's going on. But what we were able to do was to educate certain people, not about the Ox Creek situation, but about PFAS and all the training that was given to us. When we went down Riverview Drive, I would say that many of our recipients or people who filled out the surveys came from that area. We went all the way into Benton Charter Township, the park, that the river there, and their park. We went all over, and then we decided, hey, let's go to bait shops. Because when you go to bait shops, that's where people are collecting what they needed to go out and fish. And so that gave us an opportunity as well to speak with people and get feedback from them. And then we turned it up a notch. We became even more creative. Friday's fish fry. Because if you fish was one of the criterias, and if you actually ate fish was another. So why not go to Friday fish fries? And oh my goodness, we had people, someone said to us, "Are you giving away food at this one restaurant?" Because we actually had people lined up, the cars were lined up to come
Wow.
in. And we had people our team strategized at the restaurant to interview them for them to fill out the surveys. And I think it was so important that we incorporated young people, youth, and that's what I wanted to talk about. Not only was it an educational experience for them from about the environment, about fishing, about social skills, but it was also something that gave them food for thought. And some of the young people I tried to get on the show, but guess what, Susan? They're working now, or in school. And so we had a few that were seniors in high school, and they actually have jobs or are in college now. But they're able to be on that job, and they're able to still be in school, furthering their education with the knowledge that we were able to give them when it came to this whole PFAS educational experience that we were able to do. And I just think that the training that was offered by this grant was phenomenal. And you didn't miss anything. You had us totally prepared to go out and connect with our community. The Benton Harbor Farmers Market that's put on every year by the Barron County Health Department, played another vital tool, as well as all the other places that we did go throughout the city of Benton Harbor and throughout 49022. But they were already focused on public health. So, ooh, we had a long line. We actually closed down the farmers market that closes at 3 o'clock. And we had to have participants to come to our physical office across the street to complete or to finish with the application process. And it wasn't difficult, but it made people think. And I think today they are still thinking about the environment because mercy, mercy me, things are not what they used to be. And so when we look at how we now treat the environment, especially when we had younger people who were part of this and everyday people, we were very inclusive who could join us. We open it up, we advertise, social media, whoever wanted to be part of this program could. And I think I forget exactly how many we had because the pre-training took 10 hours and then it was the actual one-on-one training with Dr. Buchanan in our offices downtown Benton Harbor. And then it was going out from the farmers market to the parks, but then going out to the lakes and the waterways and combining Lake Michigan from Chicago to Benton Harbor, I think was a win-win. And it's important because I think now with all the participants that we had over 70, and that was really something. Benton Harbor really turned it up. And I think being creative, going to restaurants where people actually did fish and did eat fish was a major plus for us. And the trust that they had in us and how the Sea Grant team made us ready, available, and trustworthy in our attire and everything else was a major plus as well. So Susan, we thank you for this opportunity to be able for Benton Harbor residents sitting here on Lake Michigan to be part of this. Dr. Murray from Benton Harbor Team Solutions and the city and everyone who was involved, the 76 or 70 something people who filled out applications, and even the people who showed up on that first day saying, yes, I fish, tell me more. And we must thank them because they open up their hearts to share this important knowledge with us. And so I just think it was a win-win all the way around because it would prepare us for the future. Because things are not the way they used to be. And again, Dr. Buchanan and Sea Grant and the UIC team and Dr. Murray and Bess, we want to thank you for this opportunity.
That's great, Princess. Thank you so much. Yeah, I was thinking this morning and getting excited about possible next steps. Again, this, research, the science moves so slowly with applying, writing a grant proposal, getting the proposal, getting the funding through the university, and then actually going out, collecting the data, writing it up, blah, 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 and then applying for the next grant. I started getting excited. Okay, so this really is just a first step type of investigation of finding out just what people are fishing for so that the people and, all the aspects of their fishing behavior. And then the next step is, okay, so then we actually need to measure PFAS levels in the people and see which people have higher levels and what about their consumption behavior is leading to some people having high levels. And then the next step would be, well, what are their health problems? Are these people who are eating more fish having more of those problems that were on those two lists of high cholesterol, testicular cancer, kidney cancer, pregnancy-induced hypertension? So that's kind of the layers of how this type of science works. And this is just the ground floor. And I cannot predict if any more funding will be coming anytime soon, because we know about all the cuts. So what I want to do is just show you some of just the really early results from these surveys from both sides of the lake. And when you report any science about epidemiology or the type of science we do in public health, we just look at, okay, who was in the group first? We look at the gender, race, ethnicity. So there were a lot of women, stereotype might be that a lot of men do fishing, but here we had 50 men and 32 women. So that was a nice split. And this is with our Chicago people too. Lots of African Americans, few white, few mixed race, and not really a Hispanic population. The Sea Grant folks specifically wanted us to look in African American communities. That's where they feel like they know the least and wanted to get some information. And this is a really interesting question, was why do you fish? And there's a lot of colors here, and each group of these colors of columns is whether you said you strongly agree with that statement of, and on the first line, there is enjoyment. So why do you fish? I fish for enjoyment. So you can see how many people said they strongly agree. And so that group of columns is really quite high, showing that people fish for enjoyment. A lot of people fish to feed themselves. A lot of fish, they fish to feed their families. The light blue column is that they're fishing to sell or give away. So that light blue column is not that, oh shoot, sorry about that. Sorry, I keep answering. I'm giving a lecture. Why do I keep hitting the answer button? A little distracted. The high purple is that the high like magenta column is people saying they either agreed or strongly agreed with spending time with friends and family as a reason why they fish. This light blue column to the right shows that for the statements that they disagreed with, selling it or giving away was the most common what they disagreed with. So not everybody is selling it or giving it away. Lots of people just love to fish because it's a great recreational activity, and medium amount of people are doing it to feed themselves and family. And clearly that is a really important piece of data, because that means they're ingesting the PFAS that's in the fish. So we really did want to find out that. And then what season and how often are people fishing? And so if you start at the bottom of these columns, the darker blue is springtime. So there were people who are fishing daily in the springtime, 2 to 6 times a week, once a week, 2 to 3, really a huge variety of how often they're fishing in what season. And I'll look at, the top one is winter. If you look in the light blue column, the biggest light blue column is rarely or never in the winter. So light blue is wintertime. Most people said they rarely or never fish in the winter, but there's light blue in every column here, showing that there are people who are out there in the winter, and you all might know that already, but that was something interesting for us. This group on the south side, they are out every day of the year. Wayne even sent me pictures of them out ice fishing. So people are out ice fishing. And so what this kind of shows is that people are fishing year round. A lot of them are dailies. There's a whole variety of whether they go daily or monthly or any time in between. So tons and tons of types of fishing. And how Sea Grant will use this is if they want to reach fisher people with people who fish with information about PFAS, they can go out in any season and they're going to find people to reach out to, either with their pamphlets or whatever program of outreach they create. And then who eats the fish? A lot of people eating it and giving it to friends. Again, not as many selling or giving it away, but some are. And then we also ask what parts of the fish are eaten, because for some contaminants, like mercury, for example, collects in the muscle tissue and not in other parts of the fish. And I've done work in the Asian populations in Chicago, Chinese, Korean, and Vietnamese, and we learned that they eat a lot of different parts of the fish. So that's important if you're thinking about what are they getting exposed. So we did ask. This group mostly eats the fillets, but look, there's a bunch of people that eat the whole fish without the head. So they might be cutting it up and putting it into a stew, or putting the whole fish on the grill. And of course, this is after cleaning it, but they just eat the entire fish, not just the fillet. And then this important aspect of where do you get your health information and who do you trust? So this was, again, a huge, huge variety. I don't know what Sea Grant, how they're going to decide how to get this information out, because people had a big variety of TV and radio. You can see a local paper, the Department of Natural Resources website. Some people social media, some family and friends. We had really interesting conversations with people at these original gatherings where we were just gathering information to write our survey about people's experiences with the healthcare profession, and some really negative experiences with the healthcare profession. So they don't necessarily get their health information from their doctors. So all that has to come into play when the Sea Grant folks are going to try to teach people more about what to eat and what to avoid. Facebook was really popular as a social media platform. And this is again a busy slide showing your trust. And if you can just concentrate on, for example, you see the highest is the green columns. That's people who said they have some trust in these various outlets. And the light blue, there's also some really high light blue columns. That's people that had not at all, no trust. So if we focus on that for a minute, starting on the far left, you've got the biggest group said they had no trust in social media. So is Sea Grant going to put stuff out? They're going to spend their resources on putting stuff out on social media to teach people about PFAS? I don't know. Fishing magazine. A lot of people were not using fishing magazines. The Some Trust was family, friends, Google. When you get your fishing license, in some states, when you get your fishing license, you get a pamphlet on mercury in fish and what fish to eat and what to avoid. So we still need to kind of tease out what this all means, what our advice for the Sea Grant folks is going to be based on this trust information. A lot of it, of course, is personal experience, individual experience. We had people bring up the Tuskegee experiment on African Americans historically as a reason why they don't trust the healthcare profession. So that's an uphill battle, how to regain trust in a community that has been historically so abused and malaligned by the healthcare profession itself. And you notice, oh, Princess, you'll love this. Look at the highest green column that they have some trust was local paper. So that seems like something that is a really good method for getting information out to people. This is just my last slide, just to tell you that I am funded to be a source of information for people about environmental health. The EPA and CDC specifically have us talk about children, because the funding is about children's exposures, but as an environmental occupational health physician, I do adults as well. But this is a funding mechanism that for this week is still intact. I earlier in the week lost funding on worker health and safety from NIOSH. A part of the CDC deals with worker health and safety was completely closed down this week. We're going to see if we can claw back some. I mean, they basically just closed the buildings and fired everybody. So lost that funding. The same thing may happen with this, but for now, the EPA and CDC fund these centers in all the regions of the country. And at UIC, we are the one for this pink region 5 as a specialty center in environmental health, specifically children's, but as I said, I do adults too. And so we are available to healthcare providers, communities, individuals, parents. We have an email, we have a phone number for people to call and ask us questions or ask us to come and give talks about environmental health issues. I think that's, yeah, so that's my last slide. So thanks very much. We're happy to take any questions.
All right.
I don't see your phone. Oh,
Yes.
I didn't
Thank you. Thank you very much, Princella. Thank you very much, Susan. Ebony and Ivory were on top of things today. Thank you so very much. You guys have teamed up before. You know that, right? Like on Environmental Fridays. This is like the second time that you've teamed up. So that's really cool. Um, any comments or questions? I see Mary Alice has her hand up. I'll go with her first.
Thank you, Dr. Murray, and thank you all. And thank you, Princella, for the constant reminder of the invite to these environmental Fridays. Some of you may know and some of you may not. I've become a member of Midwest Decarbonization Coalition, and they are working with the whole overall climate justice initiative. And I was just listening to Miss Susan, and I would have the same question that I ask not only the Midwest Decarb Coalition, but Tic Tac Black and Green as well, that support us and supply us when this Justice 40 initiative started with technical assistance. And the question always becomes the overlapping of grants or funding that can be applied for. And what I have learned, and this is a question to you as well, anybody in as many organizations as possible can apply for whatever funding is available, and there is no overlapping because there's too much work to be done. Now, how does yours work with the funding that you have in organizations working together or separate, as you said, or individuals or families?
I'm not sure I understand. Are you asking whether we do overlap or exactly what the funding mechanism is?
Say I'm working with Dr. Desmond on a project that consists of some of the work that you're doing. And I'm working on another initiative that involves the work that you're doing and that you're overseeing. And I can apply separately. Is that possible?
Absolutely.
I thought so.
You can definitely overlap, stack projects on top of each other. But there's always a review process. You always have a group of people at the funder that is reading all the applications. And part of their decision is this work new and different? You know, do we already fund a group that's doing this exact same thing? So that decision's really up to the people that are reviewing the grants about what they want done. And that's kind of one of my, it's not really a secret, but one method when you're applying for grants is often the funders tell you exactly what they want. And in this case, they said, we want to know what communities of color are fishing, actually, my grant basically wrote exactly what they asked for. Now they'll sometimes say, just give an example. We want to fund this topic and here's some possible projects. And you might not do one of those possible projects. You may have your own idea, which is also fine. But for me, it's, you probably increase your chances if you're applying for exactly what they're asking for.
I appreciate my next question would be, I've been working with Freshwater Future for many years now. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the organization, but they work with our waterways, wetlands, and just ensuring that we have safe drinking water and that our water plants are not in danger of going into privatization. I've been working with them in receiving small grants, and I started years ago before the Justice for the Initiative took place with Ox Creek. And I have some things that I yet still have to place because I grew up in Benton Harbor, and I know that a lot of factories and stuff that left the community, though that in being a Brownfield Authority board member since 2002, very aware of the danger of the things that come from the factories that went into our Ox Creek, our waterways. So I'm aware of its contamination. I have some signs that I still yet have to place, but last year they started working on that one end. But if you have some documentation, I think you showed some slides. They'll be shared out.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will post as we normally do. I will post it to YouTube.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you,
and
Princella.
Yes,
Thank
I
you.
just wanted to add, if I could briefly, that I wear multiple hats. And Dr. Murray, when he introduced me, he talked about the 2002 task force report by former Governor Jennifer Granholm, where our community came together and the Benton Spirit was the #1 means of communications. And it's still, when I still want to call her commissioner, when Mary Ellis spoke about knowing who's doing what. It's amazing that with our 23-year history as a community, free community newspaper, that people still will not give us information. Knowledge is powerful for a lot of reasons. Education, of course, outreach, but also to Mary Alice's point, when it came to this initiative, we were certain that we reached out from social media to newspaper to radio. We tried to cover this whole diverse group of who we are and what we're doing to make sure that we were inclusive. But there are some organizations and agencies that are not doing that. So not all of us know who's doing what when it comes to moving forward. But what could be critical moving forward is that we start to know who's doing what, and we come together and partner as a community outreach arm. That's what Benton Harbor Team Solutions. We find solutions, but we do community outreach for others. There was a team in Ohio that came to us for Benton Harbor, as did Susan when we were reaching out to our communities. She heard our cry to help us with our water and lead situation. So we have never been behind, or we've always been in the front to let people know what we're doing. And when it comes to this PFAS, when it comes to fish, and when it comes to food, and when it comes to survival, when it comes to our public and environmental health, it is critical that we come together, because mercy, mercy me, things are not what they used to be. And so together we can move forward. And I'll just stop there to let other people who may have questions.
So I actually want to ask a question of Len. Len, are you still there? Len Archer? I wanted to find out, and I don't know.
I am. I was
Okay.
just trying to mute it.
Yes, so I wanted to find out if you are aware of any studies in the Caribbean region dealing with PFAS, just the sort of studies that we just, heard about, or
No,
any.
I don't.
Oh, okay. Because I know you are provost, right, at university. That could be
Yes,
a
yes.
possibility.
Unfortunately, I don't focus on the way in that area as I probably should. Yeah, but
Yeah.
those environmental studies, I can't say that I'm aware. I'm not saying there aren't any, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm thinking too that the Ministry of Planning in Trinidad has an environmental management division.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be a proposal to them to involve your students at the university, biology, chemistry, whoever really.
I know the University of the West Indies also has a fairly robust
environmental. Yeah.
studies program, so they might be some stuff going on there.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, just wondering.
Yes, good question.
Yes, okay. Other comments or questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Does the commercially available household water filters are they able to remove PFAS?
No.
No,
Yeah.
no, the filters, apparently, I don't know a lot about this, but the filters are really expensive. I know getting PFAS out of water is really expensive. And the tabletop Brita filters don't take it out.
Yeah. I had a professor from Notre Dame that gave a lecture on PFAS and methods that are now being used to try to remove it. I would put that up on YouTube so that some of these questions, like what Gloria just asked, could be viewed.
Yeah. Yeah, I was on a meeting with the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District in Chicago, the massive water treatment
Mhm.
facilities, and their approach, they're definitely concerned about PFAS. They're saying it's so expensive. Their approach is that the people who did the polluting and the dumping should have to pay. This
Mm,
should not be, they're taking a kind of political angle. Taxpayers shouldn't have to pay for this. This is dumping by industry, and industry should pay for it. So I don't know how successful that's going to be.
right.
But for now, there's not a lot of work being done to take these chemicals out of water systems.
So, popcorn is one of my favorite things. Do you know of like brands that don't have these bags with, PFAS in it?
PFAS, I'd
I,
have to
I,
Google it, Dr.
yeah, me
Murray.
too. Me too.
I mean, the problem is that PFAS is, from a chemical perspective, it works so well to do
Yep.
what it's supposed to do.
Mm,
Fire suppression, stain guard, I forget the role in microwave popcorn. It has something to do with it lets it get really hot in the bag without
okay.
something, burning the popcorn or something. So yeah.
Yeah, I'll check it out because I think last night I had some popcorn.
Well, is it all the microwavable in the bag? That's the bad stuff.
Yes, that's
Yes, so
that's what I
convenient,
use is
so
the
convenient.
microwavable ones. Yep. All right. Other questions?
You know, I'm always full of them, Dr. Murray. But Susan just said something else that anybody else in their respective communities need to take into consideration. We, as the Brownfield Authority Board, and I don't speak for the board as a whole, but we did put something in place that where, if in fact in the future, industries or factories or anything, hold them accountable for anything left,
Good,
that leak allowed to leak out into the soil or our waterways.
yeah, good, that's great.
Great.
Yeah, that's what we need to do.
Yep. So I Googled the PFAS sites in Michigan. I found, at least in this response, over 11,000 known PFAS sites. That's a lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I went to a PFAS conference at University of Michigan last spring. So interesting. Michigan is really hard hit with PFAS,
Mhm.
and it's resulted in a very active activist group. I forget what they're called. Michigan PFAS Action
Yes,
Coalition.
yes, we heard about it.
Yeah.
MPOT, Michigan
Yeah,
PFAS
PFAS.
reaction something. Yeah, what's his name? About 2 weeks ago, Spence Adams told
Okay.
us about that group. It's called MPART, MPART. They're specifically at the governmental level, the state level, designed to address PFAS in Michigan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and one of the tragedies I remember, I mean, this conference included affected farmers, and there were like tearful recountings from farmers who had to get rid of their herds because the feed from the herd, or the water, I think it was the feed,
Mhm.
and the grass, their land was so contaminated that they couldn't sell the meat from their herds, and so they basically lost livelihood and the milk
Right.
because it's so contaminated. So it affects farmer. It's not just our drinking water, but our food chain that we rely on.
Jane, yeah.
Affects that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
I noticed on the map, it seemed Nevada didn't have any PFAS sites.
Nevada,
Uh,
Nevada.
No, or
Oh,
did I read you incorrectly?
I could go relook at it, but Nevada doesn't have a lot of industry, so it's possible. It does have the military. It's got a lot of military sites, so it's possible that it hasn't all been tested. Not all sites have been tested. Those are just the ones that have been tested and found.
yeah. All right. So very good. Very informative. Um, and as we say in Environmental Fridays, it is personal. Okay. This is not some sort of like theoretical stuff. This affects us all. 98%. And I'm assuming that this is a global issue, not just an American issue.
Yeah.
Do you have any sense of what's happening on a global level too, Susan?
I don't. I'm sorry. I'm trying to think of
Okay.
stuff. I've been so wrapped up in our disaster here in the US. With
But I mean,
PFAS and other things that
yeah,
that I haven't looked at regulations. Often Europe, at least recently, seems to be ahead of us in
yeah.
in regulations and banning things.
Mm,
So I'd probably look to the Europeans to see what they're doing, but I haven't done
yeah.
that recently.
But
Yeah, which is why they don't want to accept American produced food,
mm,
which becomes quite a battle now.
with the tariffs and stuff, yeah. So yeah, yeah, I need to find a speaker then who could give us some insight into the global impact of PFAS because the list of things that it's in, the list of industries, I mean, this has to have a major global impact as well because
Yeah.
essentially we have global markets.
Hmm.
It's the world is small, really.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I mean, the
Yeah.
fact that it's in our car in all those products are imported. So
Yes.
they're being incorporated
Mm-hmm.
at the point of manufacture. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
I think this whole Environmental Fridays really give us food for thought. When Susan started talking about it on today, all the things, she reminded me of all the things with PFAS. We've talked about the popcorn, but that's why people are now taking their popcorn and putting it in brown bags instead of inside of those bags when they microwave them. There are some other things that people are looking at that are more eco-friendly thought wise people of how they're looking at this because I'm still eating fish and I'll probably, until something really happens. So it's not to deter us away from fish, but it's to educate us on what we need to do and how we need to do our due diligence. I think, Susan, in the midst of this, I sent you a press release that came from our Michigan's United States Senator Gary Peters. I think it was like in the billions, 1.5 billion or something toward more money going toward the Great Lakes. And PFAS was one of those because it's what Susan said at her conference. Michigan is at the top. We're surrounded by waters on different sides. And that's why it was important for our research that we did here. It wasn't just Lake Michigan, but Lake Michigan is a predominant lake, but it was also the waterways. And that's why we went to the lakes and other places as well. But when Susan started really hitting on cancer and other things, it just made us think. Well, it made me think. And so this series today was very, very good, Dr. Buchanan and Dr. Murray. It was very, very well received by me, and I'm sure by others on the call and others who will see the YouTube video of it, to know where we are. And so when we have a last set step, I think, Susan, where we're going to bring the participants who can make it to share our findings with them and to hear more from them as well regarding the C grant funding. And that's going to happen maybe the beginning or somewhere in May, that maybe we'll have just some information for them, the ones that show up, because they trusted us and took the time to give us their ideas, their thoughts, and their ways of eating. But I think this was so good because we're being proactive about what we're doing surrounding PFAS.
Mhm. See
Yeah,
another
no, I'm so
hand?
glad you brought up, sorry, Princess, so glad you brought up this issue of eating fish, continuing to eat fish, because nobody is saying to stop eating fish. It's such a healthy source of protein, and the fatty acids, the fish oil is so good for us. And so we need to keep eating fish. We just need to figure out which of the fish have the highest PFAS and avoid those. And I'd say right now, starting with slimy sculpin. I don't know if people eat slimy sculpin, but sounds kind of
Yeah,
gross.
you definitely emphasized that during the training with us. So you made us feel relieved that we can still eat fish, but you did emphasize that during the training. And so, yes,
So we
it's just
have another.
important to be up on these things.
Mhm. So we have another hand, Bridget.
Hi, and good morning, and thank you as always. I'm just wondering whether we took a look at Eric Bradford's comments. And also, my question is, have you covered the link to autism?
So the autism link would have been reviewed by the National Academies people. I personally have not seen PFAS studies that look at that outcome and come to either a positive or negative conclusion. I haven't seen those. I think if it would have existed, it would have appeared in that National Academies report. And I want to just quickly look at that National Academies report and see if autism is on the list and has a negative association. So there was inadequate evidence for other types of cancers besides kidney, breast, and testicular. There was inadequate evidence for musculoskeletal, neurologic, developmental outcomes. So I assume autism would be in that developmental outcomes that they're saying there was inadequate evidence, but I don't know of many specific studies looking at PFAS and autism. And that emphasizes how relatively new, I mean, it's really just the last 10, 15 years that this issue has been investigated. So there's just a lot more work to do.
So in the
So much.
Oh, go ahead, Bridget.
I was saying the NIH does have some thoughts to it being linked to mothers' prenatal exposure to PFAS. It does link it in that sense to autism. So thank you.
Yeah, it does cross the placenta. We do know that.
Yeah.
So Eric Bradford doesn't have a phone or a microphone right now, and he put a few comments in there. I'm just going to sort of try to summarize some of them. And one of the important points is that basically pollution hazards could be easily transferred from one region to the other because we live in an ecosystem that's interconnected. There is no custom and boundaries, geographical or political, in many of these hazards. That's kind of what we were talking about, the global impact of it. And secondly, he's talking about events like what we are having now that helps to educate and inform the public, advocacy practice, making people be more aware and bringing more consciousness to it. And then another point to, I guess, publicize studies and statistics regarding these issues, and is a way to emphasize that funding funding is important in these types of work, in this type of work. Hopefully I did justice to what he's saying here. Finally, he says it takes all hands doing a part, and the more people that work together, that increases the chances of mission success.
Mhm.
Very good, very good. Thank you, Eric.
Yeah.
And just listening to what Eric just shared, if you think about Lake Michigan, like where we're in the Midwest, I don't know what type of reports or dumping that's happening in Chicago, but as you go down Lake Michigan, then you have Gary, Indiana, all of those manufacturing plants, and then you come into Michigan City before you even reach New Buffalo or Benton Harbor. So those boundaries we're talking about from a global, but even from the Midwest, there are so many things from Chicago to Benton Harbor, other communities and municipalities and jurisdictions. And, it is something to be mindful of. So it may not just be a Michigan concern. It could definitely be a Lakes here in the Midwest concern.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely is. All right. So I think we are getting to the top of the hour. And before we go, I want to again see if I could play that song. Let's see if I could find it here on YouTube really quickly. Hopefully this will be better. Is everybody hearing the sound better?
No.
All things ain't what they used to be now. Where did all the blue skies go? Always a mission when it blows from the north, south, and east. Oh, mercy, mercy me. All things ain't what they used to be now. Oil wasted on the oceans and upon our seas, fish full of mercury. Oh, oh, mercy, mercy me. All things ain't what they used to be. No, it's not. Radiation underground in the sky. Animals and birds who live nearby. Oh, mercy, mercy me.
This is what we hear.
All things ain't what they
We don't hear that. We hear this.
crowded and how much more will you from saying mercy can't you stand that? Oh,
Okay, you guys could go look it up.
Yeah, we can hear the words.
Yes.
Really amazing.
I'll try to make it this much better next time. So we want to again bring this to a close. Thank you so much, Dr. Buchanan. Thank you, Prince Seller. Thanks to all of the persons here in our audience, everyone that attended, everyone that made comments, asked questions. Thank you so much. If it's Friday, it is Environmental Fridays, it is personal. And we look forward to seeing you all here again next Friday. Have a good weekend. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Murray. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thank you all. Stay safe, everyone.
All right.
Susan,
Thanks
did
very
she
much.
email information?
I'll get that to you.
Thank you. Stay safe, everyone.